Have you ever wondered why some countries rise to power while others fall apart, even when the numbers make no sense? Why China, with a currency considered weak, became one of the most powerful economies on Earth, capable of shaping the future of global trade? What if weakness was never the problem, but the strategy? Because behind the story of China's cheap money lies one of the most brilliant and misunderstood power moves in modern history. And if you stay until the end, you'll see how a single economic decision changed not only China's destiny but the balance of power in the entire world. While the West took pride in having strong currencies and stable economies, China quietly did the opposite. It kept its money weak, not because it was failing, but because it was playing a game most people didn't even know existed. And that choice reshaped everything from how products are made, to how nations borrow, spend, and even dream about the future. Most people think that when a currency is weak, it means the country behind it is struggling, but China proved the opposite. The truth is, a weak currency can be a weapon, and Beijing used it to fight a global economic war without firing a single bullet. To understand how, we have to go back to the late 1970s, when China was emerging from the chaos of Mao's Cultural Revolution. The nation was poor, closed off from the world, and years behind industrialized countries. Then came Deng Xiaoping, a visionary leader who decided to open China to global trade, inviting foreign investors and setting one clear goal: to industrialize at lightning speed. But there was a problem. How do you sell your products to the world when you're just starting and nobody knows you? You make them cheap, so cheap that no one can resist buying them. The fastest way to do that was through the currency. Instead of letting the yuan rise naturally as exports grew, China's central bank, the People's Bank of China, kept it intentionally undervalued. By buying US dollars and selling yuan, it kept its currency weak and its exports dirt cheap. By 2014, China had accumulated almost $4 trillion in reserves, while its factories filled the world with made-in-China goods. Imagine Nike deciding to sell $50 sneakers for 10, not because it had to, but because it wanted to dominate the market. That's exactly what China did. It sold itself short to buy global power. During the 1980s and 1990s, Chinese factories multiplied, trade surpluses exploded, and Western consumers enjoyed cheap products without realizing the cost. Walmart became the cathedral of globalization, full of goods that made Americans feel rich, while their own industries quietly disappeared. Because while Americans thought they were winning, buying TVs, clothes, and electronics for almost nothing, China was the one getting stronger. Every dollar spent on Chinese products was recycled into U.S. Treasury bonds, meaning China was not only selling to America but also lending money for America to keep buying. The irony couldn't be sharper. While Western countries bragged about strong currencies, they were financing their debt with the very nation they underestimated. A weak currency didn't mean weakness. It meant patience, vision, and control. By keeping the yuan low, China bought time to industrialize, to build infrastructure, and to pull hundreds of millions out of poverty. It played the long game while its competitors were distracted by short-term victories, and it worked. By the early 2000s, China had transformed itself into the factory floor of the world. From textiles to electronics, from steel to smartphones, its production power became unstoppable. The yuan was weak, but China was strong, stronger than anyone expected. Of course, not everyone was happy. Washington politicians accused Beijing of manipulating its currency, and technically, they were right. China was intervening. But manipulation sounds like cheating at cards, when in reality it was pure geopolitics. A cheap yuan meant full shelves in American stores, but it also meant closed factories in the Midwest. The same cheap prices that made consumers celebrate slowly destroyed manufacturing jobs that never came back. Every time an American bought something made in China, part of that money went back to Beijing's reserves. And with that money, China bought us debt. Making itself one of Washington's biggest lenders, it created a quiet dependency. America accused China of manipulation while relying on China to pay its bills. It was a perfect economic loop. China sold cheap, America consumed, and the circle of debt grew tighter. But this wasn't just about trade, it was about control. While the West was chasing prestige, China was chasing leverage. The United States loved the idea of a strong dollar, but Beijing understood that real power, isn't in how much your money is worth, it's in what you can do with it. And by using its weak currency strategically, China built the foundation of industrial and geopolitical dominance that would last for generations. Over time, the plan evolved. By 2005, China began allowing the yuan to slowly appreciate, signaling to the world that it no longer needed a weak currency to win. It already had the factories, the ports, the infrastructure, and the skilled workforce. The ladder of devaluation had done its job, and China was already standing on top of it. The same playbook, however, never disappeared. It simply changed form. Instead of devaluing money, China began devaluing industries, selling steel, solar panels, and electric vehicles below cost to flood the global market. Western competitors called it unfair. China called it strategy. Once again, it was the same logic. Sacrifice now, dominate later. Today, we see the echoes of that strategy everywhere. Even though the yuan now floats more freely and is part of the IMF's basket of reserve currencies, the mindset hasn't changed. China continues to think in terms of decades, not quarters. It uses state subsidies to make its industries unstoppable. And while Western countries debate tariffs and inflation, Beijing quietly expands its influence through trade, technology, and digital finance. Now the goal is even bigger, not just to sell goods, but to make the yuan itself a global alternative to the dollar. Through trade in Asia, oil contracts in the Middle East, and the Belt and Road Initiative, China is building a world where its currency, not America's, sets the rules. And with the digital yuan, it's taking the next step, direct control over money flows. Skipping the systems the West has dominated for a century. The West still celebrates strong currencies as symbols of pride. China turned that idea upside down. It showed that sometimes, power means looking weak on paper while building something unshakable underneath. By keeping its currency cheap, it bought time, built factories, and lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty. It traded prestige for power, paper strength for real strength. And while others bragged about their exchange rates, China quietly rewrote the rules of global economics. So the next time you see a weak currency, think twice, because weakness can be a disguise, and in the game of nations, strategy always beats appearances. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Rome debased its coins. Spain flooded Europe with silver. America prints dollars. And China devalued the yuan to build its empire. Different tools, same game. Money has never been neutral. It's always been a weapon. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe, because history has the answers, and I'll show you where to look.